Chapter 1. Flashback. As I look back into my introduction to the guitar and the love of making music, I thought I'd share my experiences. April 1986. The neighborhood I grew up in was great. There was always a basketball or football game to be played, or ramps to be jumped on BMX bikes. But when 1986 rolled around, things in my life would soon change. I was in 10th grade, finally in high school, after spending an extra year in junior high, having to repeat the 7th grade. The kids were bused across town to the junior high school, and it was awful, located in the hood. But the high school was just a few minutes from home. So now it was a fresh start in a new school. Springtime had rolled around, and the high school would put on a talent show every year. It was titled The Senior Follies. My friend and I had talked about going to see the talent show, but neither one of us had a driver's license yet. So another friend offered to pick us up, as he was also going to the show. On the way to the talent show, our friend with the car popped in a cassette. The sounds coming out of the speakers blew my mind. It turned out to be the Fair Warning album, my first real introduction to Van Halen. Remember, this was in 1986. I was 16 and still listening to old rap music and Bryan Adams. As I heard the blazing guitar from the cassette, I thought to myself, how the hell is this guy doing that? It was official after that. Within the next few days, I was buying Van Halen cassette albums, one after the other. Later that year, around October, the local radio station would have this little cheesy call-in talent show on Friday mornings. In school, I was kinda known for being able to make a couple of cool sound effects, like the guy from the Police Academy movies. One Friday morning, as I was getting ready for school, I remembered about the radio talent show and decided to try my luck. I remember feeling nervous as I dialed the numbers on the phone, but I thought, nobody's going to know who I was anyway. I couldn't believe I actually got through to the station. The call screener answered and asked what my talent was. I told him I was wanting to perform some electronic drums with my mouth. I was told to stay on the line and hold. After a few moments, I was on the air. The radio hosts asked me what talent I was going to perform. I told him the same thing that I told the call screener. He said, well, all right, let's have it. I did the intro from Aerosmith's Walk This Way. The radio host started laughing some. I thought then, well, I'm done. I might as well hang up the phone. But to my surprise, they were in disbelief and asked me to do it again. Now I'm kind of freaking out, so I did it again. They then asked me if I had some sort of Casio keyboard by the phone. I replied, no sir, just me and the phone. They told me they were shocked at how I pulled it off. I was feeling like I was on cloud 9. It was a cool feeling. As I arrived at school, someone said, hey Joe, I heard you on the radio, man, that was cool. Even some chicks told me they heard it as well, and told me they liked it. It kind of blew my mind. I was always the guy who never had much of a shot at anything. Always a day late and $1 short in most cases. As I got home that day from school, I walked inside and put my books on the kitchen table. And just in a matter of minutes, the phone rang. I figured it was my mom, as she would always call at 2:15 to make sure I was home. But it wasn't my mom. It was the radio station. Chapter 2. Six-String Fever. I found out from the radio show's producer that I had won the contest. He asked me to display my drum sounds again to verify it was really me. So I did it again. I had now won my first contest. The prize? $100. Back then, to a 16-year-old kid making $3.35 an hour part-time, $100 was a lot of money. They said they would send me a check in the mail. After I gave him my full name and address, I waited. I checked the mail every day after school. It took close to 6 weeks, but as promised, the check came. Earlier that year, a friend and myself went with my parents to the lake for the weekend. We saw a band setting up and getting ready for that night's gig. I was blown away by the guitar player as he was warming up. I just stood there in amazement as I watched his fingers on the fretboard. So, with the winnings from the radio station, I put my first guitar on layaway, just in time for Christmas. I asked my parents if they could pay it off, and that be my Christmas gift. They said they would have to wait and see. But sure enough, I got the 6-string on Christmas Eve, 1986. Not long after, I had heard that Van Halen had released a brand new live concert, live without a net. A friend of mine made me a copy of the VHS video, and now I could see Eddie Van Halen close up and try to cop his chops. Well, I had soon figured that this task wasn't going to be easy. Eddie's lightning speed was the same as a quick kick given by Bruce Lee. I paused the video so many times that it eventually started to damage the video. But progress was being made, very, very slowly. I was always determined to learn on my own, which is stupid, because a little guidance can go a long way, and move things along a lot faster. But after a while, I finally started getting some of the two-hand tapping down. Then later, pinched harmonics and different chord structures. 2 years later, it would be time to take to the stage for the first time. Chapter 3. Rock and Roll. I went through the first 2 years of high school with nothing in mind but wanting to get further on guitar. In 11th grade, my science teacher let me bring my guitar to class as part of a project. We had talked the day earlier, and he told me, "I'm going to ask you some basic questions about the sound of the strings and how sound travels. Then, when I ask you if there is anything else you'd like to add, that's your cue to rock out." He was the coolest teacher I ever had. He always made learning fun and interesting. Finally, I made it to my senior year. I had remembered the talent show from 2 years earlier and set my sights on making my mark on this one. They had auditions after school in the auditorium. I was nervous as hell. I was playing my red BC Rich that I had yellow and black tape on to make it look like Eddie's famous Kramer. My turn came, and I jammed along with the tape in my jam box. I happened to notice that the other kids that were there to audition started dancing and moving around as I played. Once again, Cloud 9. I got done and everyone applauded, even the teacher who was in charge of the whole show. After being told that I made the cut, I stayed in my room and practiced my ass off, feeling a little bit more confident as the month went by, getting closer to the show. The talent show was being held on a Friday night and Saturday night at the high school auditorium. The first night for me was a complete disaster. Technical mishaps made me look like a fool on stage. The second night, and last shot at redemption, was the complete opposite. Everything went wonderful as I played along with Led Zeppelin's Rock and Roll. The place was packed, and everyone roared with applause at the end. That was the first time I had ever felt anything like that. It was amazing, and I wanted to feel it again. It was almost better than sex. Such a huge rush. As time would pass, I would learn a little more on the guitar. It always seemed to be a slow process. I'd get in a rut and get easily aggravated. Then there were times where things would go a little smoothly. Sometimes you can find yourself in a tricky situation. Then you have to do the best you can, or run away with your tail between your legs. Here's a prime example. Back in the summer of 1996, I was working part-time for the Charlotte Motor Speedway during the Coca-Cola 600. One afternoon, the crew was invited to a big barbecue right next to the track. My boss at that time noticed that I had brought my guitar one night to play during my break. He told me he had a good friend of his performing some live entertainment at the cookout. He was like a one-man band. He asked me if I'd like to join in the entertainment. I said, sure, why not? It didn't take long for me to see that this guy was the real deal. He had his own RV setup with a huge PA system, a keyboard, microphones, lights, etc. Here I am showing up with a guitar and a small amp. I wondered if this was a setup of some kind to put me on the spot or embarrass me. But either way, it was time to play or walk away. I chose to play. I introduced myself to the gentleman and asked what songs we were going to play. He said, beach tunes, oldies but goodies, stuff like that. I thought to myself, well, I'm screwed. I know 0 of these songs. So I asked what key the song started in. His response? Just jump in and follow along the best you can. Wow, really? So, this is a great example of how much playing music with other musicians is very important to develop as a musician. Don't ever think that you're better than another musician. If you look at this as a competition, then you will gain no respect whatsoever. It's about having fun and learning from others, and passing the knowledge along to someone who can use a little help. We all had to start somewhere. It's great to have heroes. I know I have mine, and I've had to take a little from each of them, as well as adding my own taste. This helps you develop your own style, and you don't need to sound like a copycat. That is what you definitely do not want. Chapter 4. Reliable music. These days, it's kind of hard to find great little music stores, like the one I went to when I discovered guitar. It was like an oasis, a piece of guitar heaven, a place where someone like me could belong and be accepted. This amazing place was named Reliable Music, an independently owned music store in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is the place where I got my very first guitar, the one I got from the talent show winnings. It was like Christmas Day when you walked into this place. Guitars everywhere, bass guitars, keyboards, drums, etc. And, being that this was in 1986, everyone that worked there looked like a rock star. 2 salesmen that worked there, I will always remember. First, there was Mark Krotz, an awesome guitarist/salesman, with cool-looking blonde hair that looked like he just did a cover shoot for Guitar magazine. Second, there was Jimmy Saviano. He was awesome as well. He looked like he just came out of Bon Jovi. These guys were great, and they take the time to answer your questions and treat you like you belong to this awesome guitar community. What would really floor me was, when I was interested in a particular electric guitar, Mark would plug it up, and for about 15 to 30 seconds, he would just floor my ass with his guitar playing. I would be standing there when he'd hand the guitar back to me and say, "Here you go, man, go for it." Yeah, right. I really miss that place. It was a place where you knew that common bond between you and everyone there was the love of playing music. So in a way, everyone was kind of like family. I spent quite a few years there when I was growing up. Even if I didn't have any money, I'd still drive out there and hang out. I'd watch people play guitars. And there you go. Free lesson. Chapter 5. Band Power. One afternoon, while I was at Reliable Music, I was looking over the ads on the board. This was a big board where people would post ads, searching for other musicians to hopefully form a band. I saw this one ad. It seemed to be interesting, so I called. I talked to a guy named Brian Starks. He said that he and his friend, John Alfred, bassist, were looking to form a band. I liked the way Brian presented himself over the phone, so I took a chance. About a week later, I met up with Brian and John. They were really nice guys, but I thought it was a stretch at first. Not having a drummer, they used a keyboard and got the drums from that. But I found it to be fun. I was jamming and learning along the way. After some time had passed, we eventually got a drummer and a singer. And things kind of seemed like they were finally coming together. But at the same time, something seemed to be missing. Maybe it was just me. We were kids. Starting off, it was fun. But at the end, I bowed out gracefully. I never really saw them again. But thanks to Facebook, I've been able to reconnect with them. I always loved the brotherhood that being in a band brings. I never really saw that again until some years later. I was now living in South Carolina and driving big rigs for a living. It was around 2003 when a friend of mine named Walter wanted to expand from a duo to a full band. Walter was well known on the local music scene. He was an excellent acoustic player and singer. I went and saw him perform with a trio he was in at the time called Rain. These guys were fucking good, too. All the elements were there. Perfect harmonies, playing, everything. But one weekend, Walter was doing a solo acoustic show. So, I thought I would check it out. Walter is 13 years older than me, but he doesn't act like it. After I saw his solo gig, I asked him if he'd be interested in jamming sometime. To my surprise, he said yes. At this time, I had my own duo going on, with my great friend Eric. We were rocking the bar on the weekend that Rain was not performing. So, when Rain fell apart, Walter joined forces with Eric and myself. I think this kinda left a sour taste in the mouths of the remaining members of Rain. But this kind of thing happens a lot more than you may realize. Everything started off pretty well. We were having fun. Then, little stupid things start to happen that you really don't have control over. Let's put it this way. When a certain wife cares more about buying shots for people, getting shit-faced, and not being there to support her husband's performance, then yes, this presented a problem quickly. Nothing worse than dealing with a drunk all the time. As you can guess by now, it was back down to a duo again. I started looking for drummers online. I came across this ad that said he had 20 years experience in all different styles of music. I thought to myself, is this guy for real? I talked to Walter about it, and we agreed to contact the drummer. I called his number and left a message on his machine. A few days later, Walter and I showed up for a jam. His name was David, a very nice guy, with a drumming talent that was phenomenal. We clicked right away. We work on the top 40 standards from the 70s and 80s. A few months later, the final piece of the puzzle would join us, an amazing bassist named Jeremy. Wow, what a laid-back cat Jeremy is. Such a great personality and a great laugh. We pursued forward and practiced for a full year before getting a gig. We wanted to be at our best when the time came to perform. And boy, that was a great decision. It not only helps with knowing the material inside and out, but it really does wonders for the confidence level. So the time came for us to try out our set. The folks loved it. It felt like we'd been doing this for 10 years. I knew this is what I wanted. I wanted this band to last. Even if we only played once a month, that was fine by me. But, as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. I don't always believe in this quote, but sometimes it does happen. After some personal issues within the band, it was not meant to be. Man, talk about being disappointed. I did not want to see this happen. I still try and stay in touch with the guys, because we had a lot of good times. Chapter 6. Going Solo. After being in and out of bands, I started to grow tired of that scene. My day job requires a lot of my time, so the money from these gigs isn't worth the trouble. A lot of that has to do with areas of town you perform in. So I started really getting into writing and recording my own material. This way works out perfectly for me. I don't have to drag equipment back and forth to rehearsal. I get to call my own shots and play all the instruments. And the best thing? I can do it on my schedule. The good part is, you can do all your music on your own, mix it, master it, and distribute it. But with the oversaturation of wannabe musicians, it's really hard to get heard. But for me, I play and record music because I love to do it. It's a part of my DNA. If someone hears it and likes it, that's the reward in itself. That puts a smile on my face.